good question. I'm surprised you're not in this line of work. Great question. So, one of the biggest things I've seen happen in public education, or maybe I should say a change in public education, and also in regards to athletics, is there was a time when I started this business as well as my wife, where the secretaries or office staff were trained to answer the phone when there was a complaint or a question or anything that was from a parent or community member that was directed at a teacher or a coach, and the office staff was trained to answer the phone. Well, I'm getting some blowback from the wind here. I'm sorry. They were trained to say, "Have you talked to Coach Sheridan yet?" And if the answer was no, they would advise them, "Well, you need to talk to Coach Sheridan first, and then if you're not satisfied with his response, we can take this up to the principal, vice principal, or the athletic director, whichever venue the complaint was directed at." And what that did was it empowered the teachers and the coaches to be the first line of response. So there's no middle person. And that simplifies things, or it did simplify things dramatically, again, because the coach or the teacher was the first line of response. So when there's no middleman, I think again it simplifies everything, and in I would say 75 to 80% of the time, at least in my experiences after talking to me, the problem was solved. Now, if there was an egregious, if there was something crazy that happened, and luckily I've never fallen into that category, but if there was something crazy, then yeah, the secretaries were all smart enough to say, okay, well, we need to talk to our principal or whoever. But I'm talking about, your typical, my son got a C in weightlifting class. I'm a phys ed teacher, and I want to talk to the principal. Or my son's upset with his playing time. I want to talk to the AD. And when coaches or teachers were allowed to be the first line of response, a lot of those questions or comments or concerns could be handled in a much more quick time frame versus how I see things happen now, where the principal or the AD gets that call and now they become the middleman. And that kind of muddies things up a little bit, and it puts the teacher and the coach a little bit in a tense state because, oh gosh, why wasn't I the first person to answer this? What's going on? And I just don't think anything good happens from that. I much prefer being the first line of response. So that's a really good question. And in this line of work, everything's cyclical. I think we will get back to that. And I'm sure there's a lot of school districts who still do it that way, the way in which I prescribe, having the teacher or the coach being the first line of response. So that's a really good question. Thank you for asking me that. Again, I'm surprised you're not in this line of work. So I'm sure I'm not the first person who's had that answer. Uh, what's your next question?